Hello everyone, my name is Emma Harwood and today I will be discussing what is the COVID-19 situation in Florida. And before I get started, I want to give a little background information about why I chose. One moment, we'll let this kind of load for us. But I want to explain why I chose this topic. Of course, when I opened the given Tableau workbook, I was given data and visualizations of dashboards for a global and then a United States COVID-19 tracker. And as I was looking on the global COVID-19 tracker, I was automatically interested in the United States and why we had the #1 ranking for cumulative cases. Therefore, I shifted my focus to the United States, and when I was looking at it again, I was intrigued by Florida and their high ranking in cumulative positive cases. So that is where I got my topic from, kind of just a little background there again. But as you can see, I have my dashboard pulled up with my COVID-19 data, all the things. I liked the original layout and format of this dashboard, and I kept it so viewers can interact and look at the whole United States compared to Florida if they wish, so they can, change the different tabs and the details. But I want to dive in. So if we'll scroll over, I have the different cumulative positive cases by county, just so we can see what those are. And then the cumulative positive cases rates and deaths over here on the side. And then here I did a little bit of stuff that I'm going to go into shortly. And then also a Florida monthly report. So if I can scroll up. So what I did to the state of Florida, and this is all the counties, I wanted to adjust the sizes of the marks so we are able to see kind of where we're looking at and get a better idea of where we're seeing those cases in the large, vast numbers. So I'll scroll over a few and give a few explanations. We've got Duval County with 160,562, and then they just keep increasing as we go further down into the southeastern border. We've got Palm Beach, Broward County, and then, of course, leading us is Miami-Dade. And I separated it into 5 scales so we're able to see those differences and see what's going on there. So before I could answer the overall question of what is the situation in Florida, I wanted to also focus on other questions that help contribute to that overall question so we can figure out what exactly that situation is. Therefore, this leads me to my first question. What factors contribute to the number of new and cumulative positive cases? So the answer to that question is things I thought of, and then through also external research and then additional resources that I pulled in and looked for other explanations. Here are a few. So we've got vaccination. The percentage of vaccination can really play a huge role in those numbers. Also, precautions. What are people doing? Are they social distancing? Are they wearing a mask? Are they staying in, to themselves and not socializing in large numbers? Weather and geographic location. I read a really good article, and I linked it in my resources, about how the geographic location plays a role by maybe not as much as we think, how smaller towns we've seen in Florida are not getting as vaccinated, even though the percentage of people vaccinated overall in the state of Florida is, as of August, was 51%. And I have that labeled on another slide for us to just kind of reiterate. But again, weather, as far as it's hot and it's humid outside, or if we're cold, those things play a factor into it. Also, the different variants of COVID-19, whether people are contracting it again, or if they're immune to it, or if they're getting the vaccine. All those different things play a role as well. And then, of course, demographics. If someone, some things that came to mind were age and possibly even gender, race, ethnicity, different things like that can also play a role, whether someone is having COVID-19 or not, and contributing to those numbers. And then lastly, luck. This was a really good point made from an article, I believe by German Lopez, and he discusses how some people have a natural immunity and they just get luckier than others. So moving on to my second question, is there a correlation between the date and the number of positive/cumulative cases? So as we look, there is that percent I was talking about. At the peak of its outbreak in mid-August, Florida had fully vaccinated about 51% of its population again. Not great, but in line with the national rate. We kind of have to think about that. In comparison to the national rate, 51% was a pretty good number. It's not the best, but we can continue to work on that. But I included one of my charts, which I created, which is the Florida Monthly Report. And it's just a good thing. If we look down here in August of 2020, of course, this was still kind of in that stage where we were shut down. Things were different then, a lot more mandates as far as in Florida. And then we come over here to this massive surge in August of 2021. And then we kind of see that downward trend, which is a great thing, but it kind of makes you wonder, did the date, August, the summertime, traveling, the lessening of the mandates, things like that factor in to what was happening in Florida. Florida is a very popular state for traveling. There's Disney World, there's beaches, you've got, it's so close to the border, so people are coming in. It's a very hot spot for people to visit or even to reside in. So we have to think of those factors as well when we're looking at the date and comparing it to the number of cases. Next question would be, what is the expected trend for the future? Like I said, in August of 2021, we had that surge, but then we saw that downward trend. Is this something that is possibly going to continue, where we're continuing to plateau or flatten the curve, or is it something we're going to see continue to increase? So my opinion is, with evolvements in the COVID-19 vaccine, there's an outlook of another plateau. And I will kind of look here at the data, and this is the cumulative positive cases. Of course, that number is going to continue to rise. But as far as new, we want to look here at this trend line and see how it's kind of continued to go up. And this right here, we had September 7th, and I believe we've got some other variations there as well. But we can see that hopefully we can get more down into that slope, and it's starting to look. We had a high month in August, of course, but in September we're starting to kind of find that trickle back down. So hopefully this is the future trend, to go back down. So in conclusion, is it possible to flatten the curve? It is possible to flatten the curve if the Florida residents do their part. While at least half the state is vaccinated, there is still work to be done to stop the spread of COVID-19. And how are we going to do that? My recommendations are for Florida government officials, residents, people from traveling to Florida, if that is what they choose to do. We want to strategize. We want to use the data that we're given, that we're fortunate enough to have, that we can see daily these changes in what is happening in the state of Florida. So we want to use that data and research it. Figure out the best methods and ways to get that number down. Florida should create a plan to flatten that curve. And I know that's harder said than done, of course, with, like I said, things we can't really control, but there are things that we can control. So we're going to implement that strategy with you, and my thought process is we want to explain the benefits and the features of the vaccine and being vaccinated, and also the importance of taking those precautions. And hopefully, in doing so, of getting vaccinated, wearing your mask, social distancing, taking all those proper precautions, washing your hands, not touching your face. I know we've heard them time and time again, but just explaining the benefits, the features, and the importance of it, of protecting ourselves and others, and getting that backup from state officials, and even in local, like I said, in most of those geographical locations, it plays a role, because we need to focus on those small towns, because those are where we're kind of lacking in the vaccination number. So we need to worry about that just as much as we're pushing out there that things are opening and things are, on the mend. We still need to realize that we are in a pandemic, and we have to figure out how to get those numbers down. So once you do that, once you strategize and you implement those methods, we want to review them. So we're making sure that that data is actually being used, and that we are evaluating the changes, and that way we can make those necessary steps that we need to be done. I apologize, my screen has went. Anyway, continuing. The whole value of my presentation of Florida and what is the situation is there as far as COVID-19 is, if we don't fully understand what causes the rise and fall of pathogens, how can we possibly hope to tame them? This was a quote by German Lopez, and it really stuck with me, because if we don't fully understand I'm trying to think of the proper word there, apologies. If we don't fully comprehend and gather and look into all this data that is right there at our fingertips, and we aren't understanding like what's causing it, what's leading to it, but also what we can do to minimize it and get it on the downfall, then how can we figure that out? How can we figure it out if we're not taking the steps to understand it, analyze it, and also, like I said, strategize and implement it, and then just come back and revisit it, reevaluate, figure what we can do better. So yes, in conclusion, that was what I believe the situation in Florida is, and how I believe we can flatten that curve, get it down, and also those other questions that are very important and things we should consider. Here I have my resources listed. Some of them were really interesting, and there was others that were a lot of numbers, but I really enjoyed this, and I hope you all did too. Thank you for your time.